Hello and welcome back to Serendipity Intended. My name is JJJan and I am so glad that you are here. It is day 4 of Junk Journal January 2026 and I am super excited about today's prompt. So let me go ahead and take my journal out of its cover here, because I won't be needing that set aside. So again, I am doing all of the prompts in my daily Hobonichi. I know it's not a junk journal, but I'm using junk journal materials in this journal. And I've got the prompt list here. And as you can see, day 4 is landscape, or maybe you can't see because it is really tiny, but day 4 says landscape. And so I went ahead and I'm literally doing this on the pages as I go. So I'm using day 4 for day 4. And when I was thinking about how I wanted to address this prompt and landscape, I immediately remembered a technique that I love to do and actually haven't done in a while. I'm sure there's a name for it. I don't know what that name is. I thought the easiest way to explain the technique was to show you. This is my Junk Journal July journal from 2024. And I used this technique during this prompt or this challenge. And so I wanted to show you what my idea was. So it also used a landscape. And in this instance, I think the prompt was postcard. But what I did was I took a postcard and then I extended the picture that was on the postcard onto the page with colored pencils. And that was kind of what I did for that particular prompt. And I thought this would be a perfect technique to use to accomplish landscape. So taking a landscape image and putting it on the page and then extending that image myself onto the page. So that is the idea behind what it is that I'm going to do. So with that said, I've got pieces of fiber from my tie all over my desk here. Let me go ahead and get this out of the way. So this is the page that I've got, and I thought I could possibly do the landscape on this part of the page and then extend it this way, and then I'd still have room at the top to draw. So I don't want to use a postcard if I can avoid it, just because I'm trying to keep the bulk down. So I thought I would go with the digital. I went through what I had, and surprisingly, I have fewer digitals than I thought. I had a few more that I know had landscapes on them that were kind of winter landscapes. And I think I must have used them all in another project. And I'm out of ink from my printer, so I'm a little bit restricted to what I have. So I did have 2 digitals, and I wanted to share kind of what I was thinking. So this is the first image, and what I like about it is that I definitely could reproduce the colors on here with my colored pencils. I know that I could pretty easily because this is fairly soft. But I don't think the image itself is particularly interesting. And it almost feels a little too muted. I would definitely get rid of the flower on the top. And this is a digital of a postcard, but since it's just printed on paper, it's much thinner. So this is one option. I also had this one, and I think the colors are much more interesting. So at first I thought about possibly using this, and because there's a landscape behind here, as I really love this image, but with the holly, it feels a little bit Christmassy to me, and I feel like the focal point of the image is the bird, and that's not really landscape. Although it definitely, I could extend the snow and the branch and the leaves beyond the image. But then I saw this image here in the background, and I thought, well, this is perfect because I can include this and go kind of over and not really stress too terribly much about, yeah, and sort of wing it. I think this is some sort of tree here as well. So I thought, well, this might work. The colors are a little bit darker, but I think it's also a little more interesting. So I'm going to go with this image. Right, so the first thing that, because I don't want to lose the other things that are on the page, so I am going to first kind of fussy cut around her so that I can still use this image. And I could have just torn it, but I like I said, I don't really want to lose her. So we'll just sort of fussy cut there. And then I also don't want to lose this image. So again, I'm gonna kind of come over here and then just fussy cut around this way, which will make tearing a little bit more challenging, but that's okay. And then that's actually where the image stops. So I've got this little bit left, and this is going to be my starting point. I think I'm going to ignore the bird, and I do think I'm going to, well, no, I'm going to tear. I'm going to tear the whole thing. So start from this side, and I kind of want this bottom edge to be somewhat straight, and maybe I'll hang on to the little bird, set him over to the side. All right, so that's that edge. And then I need to tear along here. And actually, I'm going to tear this way so that I don't get that white. You see how, like here, there's a little bit of white? I don't really want that. I want to minimize the amount of white so that it's less of a boundary between the image and what I'm drawing. So if I tear away from the image instead of towards the image, it will allow me to keep that edge somewhat clean. All right, so for now, I'm going to do it that way, and then tear across the top here, and then down on a bit of a diagonal. And I don't want to lose all of this tree because I want to start from that. So we'll just like so, and then tear off the edge. All right, so I think that's kind of an interesting little fragment that then I can glue down and continue onto the page. And I'm thinking probably about here to place that. Now what I am going to do is grab my glue stick and put just the smallest amount on the back here, right in the center, just to help hold it in place while I add the pieces that I'm going to add, and then I can always unglue it later and re-glue things back down. Right, so I do have a little bit of a crease here because the previous page when I was gluing things down, I didn't do such a great job of that. So I'm gonna have to deal with this wrinkle at some point. All right, so the next thing that I need to do actually is I'm gonna zoom in just a bit so that you can see a little bit more clearly what I'm gonna do. All right, so I have this image, and first I'm going to grab a pencil because I don't I don't trust myself to do this directly with pen. And I'm going to, with the pencil, kind of continue. So this looks like a stone wall. So I'm just going to continue, and then some sort of bushes or something and grass here. So I'm just going to continue that stone like so. And then there's a little bit of snow that continues here. And then there's these trees. So maybe continue them like that. And then the house. Oh, there's also this branch here. And some leaf. Maybe it goes like this a little bit. And then that continues off the page. And then the house also continues. So, and again, I'm not, oh, and the gate, oh, it's a little more complicated than I was originally thinking, but that's okay. Again, I'm just sketching out some of the details, and then I imagine that there would have been a similar thing on the other side of the fence to hold the gate up with some nice big blocks stacked there. And then there's the tree. And it doesn't show me on this image what kind of tree it is. That doesn't exist in, it's cut off by that bird that was there. So I'm just going to imagine, so if the trunk kind of came up this way, that maybe there's a branch there and maybe a branch there. And so the trunk, and I'm just going to let it stop. And then the wall also would have continued, a little bit of snow, and let's see, block, and then another block, and then a block, and then there's some snow continuing that way. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my Micron 5, and I'm going to just use the pen, again, real lightly to sketch in some of the details. I'm not so much worried about precision as I am just kind of getting the bits and pieces in there. Maybe let it continue like that. And there is some shading here, so I'm going to make this a little bit darker where the blocks are, just to kind of create that image. And then the house, actually, let's do this tree branch here and let it continue off this way all the way to the edge. And there, move this. I do want this to hold it down, but I don't want it in my way. I'll go that way, and then come to the other side here. And this is definitely easier to do when you have a landscape that you're reproducing that is already an illustration, because there's less to concern yourself with in terms of being accurate. You're reproducing an illustration, so it's already a little bit loose for you, so you can come back in and be equally as loose. And again, I'm not trying to draw straight lines. I'm trying to make this a little more evocative than realistic. Okay, and then this continues off this way, maybe a little bit of snow, and then brick here, and another. And then, oh, so that ends there, so probably like another one here, like so. Okay, so I've got the bits and pieces here, and I need to grab some colored pencils to add the color, and then I'm also going to erase the pencil marks so that they're not there. But first I need to grab those colored pencils. All right, so I've got my pencil case with all of my lovely colored pencils in them. And so got them in number order, which is always fun. I'm gonna sort of set this over to the side and pull as I need to. I'm also going to grab my eraser and erase the pencil marks that I made as sort of a guideline so that I don't have those there. Okay, so now I need to choose some colors to start with. And I'm definitely going to be starting with some of these background colors. So this gray, there's a little bit of yellow in here. And then the snow, and this is a little bit of like a gray-green color. So I'm gonna grab some of those colors first, and I'll start with that. So give me just a moment. Okay, so I picked out some colors to use as my background. Although I am realizing I probably should also get a lighter yellow for in the snow, and maybe even a white, just in case I need that. So I've got two shades of gray, sort of a blue-gray, and also I think this is more of a lime green. And I'm also thinking maybe I should grab an olive green, if I can find it, for myself. I was thinking I grabbed the olive, but now that I'm looking at this, I don't think that I did. Oh, can't find my olive. Dark green, oh, here it is. Here's my olive green. So, although I think that might work better for here, but we'll tuck them there. And I also grabbed a bronze color just for another yellow. So I'm going to start with the sky, and I'm actually going to start with these yellow streaks that are here so I can extend them a bit. Now the reason I didn't glue this down is so that I can continue the pencil slightly under the paper to increase the illusion that this paper and what I'm adding are the same. So I'm gonna take this yellow and gonna do a little bit this way with those pieces, and then I'm gonna lift and just continue a little bit into so that I don't lose it. I'm gonna do the same thing, just a little tiny hint over here. All right, and then I'm going to grab this slightly lighter yellow and kind of go in here. And then I can take, and there's also, it feels like a little bit of yellow underneath of this gray. So I'm gonna add just a little bit here. To the background, just to let there be something underneath besides the white to bleed through the gray, and hopefully that'll make sense. Now I think that this gray is going to be the better gray to use here in the sky. So I can see it's lighter up here. I'm kind of going in a little bit of a circular motion because I don't want the lines. Now the one challenge is I've got stuff on the other side, so it's gonna create like a little bit of a rubbing impression on the back, and there's not really anything I can do about that. I guess I could have done this on another paper and then glued it in, and I would have eliminated that issue, but I think it's more fun to do it directly on the page, so that's what I'm doing. And again, just kind of letting some of that yellow peep through. I'm getting a lot of texture from the back. I'm realizing there probably would have been trees back here. Let me grab my, where's my Micron pen? So I didn't draw anything in here, but I think there would have been trees behind. So we'll just quick put a little tree line in, and then we'll let the sky come down to that point. And we'll sort of fill in here. And then, again, there probably would be, I'm thinking about this, the trees in the background probably would continue. So I probably shouldn't have brought the gray all the way down here. That's all right, I'll cover over that. And because I want this image to sort of fade off, I'm gonna just let the sky just sort of end, and the trees sort of end, and I'm really having a tough time getting the color down here. Almost feels like I got finger oils or something on the page. So it's coming. It's not quite there though. I'm having issues with what's underneath of it. So I think what I'll do is I'll leave this for now. I'm going to go ahead and do the things that are in the foreground, and then I will come back and maybe use a little bit of watercolor. I don't want to use a ton because this paper is really thin, but just a little bit of watercolor, particularly in the sky, to even out some of that background. And then I think we'll be okay. So this brown is not really a brown. It's really almost more of a black. So I'm gonna take a really dark brown, like a dark umber, and I'm gonna use a little bit of that in the tree. That's gonna give you, just so you can see, that's gonna give you sort of this color. So it's a really dark brown. So I'm gonna use that in the tree here. here. And I can actually bring it down a little bit in just to create the illusion that they are connected. And then I'm gonna grab my black and go up. So you see how there's a little darker on this side than on the other side. So I'm gonna go up the same side and do a little bit of that black just to get some of the same shading as in the original image. Sort of force the illusion that that's going on. Okay, I'm liking that. Now we need to do, let's see, let's do a little bit of that snow. So there is a little bit of this green here, but then it sort of goes into this blue-gray. So I'm gonna follow the same lines that I see. And again, I'm going underneath of it so that the color continues. And then this line over here, and then, so this is lighter here. So a little bit of like a greenish brown here, so I'm gonna kind of continue a little bit of that. This bronze, just a little bit up here as well. Again, I'm not really trying to be literal, I'm just sort of trying to be suggestive more than anything. And I think we need a little bit of the gray here. Ah, come on. Go up into this just a bit. Yeah, maybe here. All right. All right, and then let's tackle these trees in the background. So it's pretty dark. So definitely, I think this is where I'm going to use some black and also this olive. So first go in with the olive. That's the color that's going to sort of hint behind. It's mostly going to be near the top where it's lighter. There. And then we'll go, I think it needs a brown too, or maybe this gold. Just a little bit of hints of that. And then again, I'm going to take the black and darken that a bit. Do the same thing here, little gate. So there's a little bit of color, but not a ton. And then the same thing here. I really should have continued. Where's that olive again? Should have continued this down here. And just sort of let the color run out. Then I'm going to go back where I see some Okay. All right, then I think I need to use, I want to match that red. So let's see, taking a guess. That's a little too brown. And that's definitely going to be too brown. I'm going through my reds. So I have a Tuscan red, I think might be, that's pretty close. I'm going to use that. And that's going to be my house. Again, kind of continues. You can see how that image, you're starting to get the feel of it continuing there. That's super fun. Okay, and then I need that olive again. So now I need to do the wall, and there's definitely a good amount of green in this stone. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to do it maybe a little bit darker. Just to get the hints of some of that green. But then I think it's more of, again, this bronze color to go in and fill in. So I'll do that. Yeah. And same thing over here. There. That one's working pretty well. This one, I don't think I quite got enough of some of that underneath color. I'm going to add a little bit of brown here and then go back over it again with the bronze. Yeah, that's a little bit better. This side is a little more brown than the other side. Oh my goodness, I forgot to do up here. Silly me. Again, it's more of the bronze. And a little bit of the brown and a tiny bit of the olive. There we go. And so I can get a little bit of the white in there. Okay, the only thing I don't like is that this sort of stops abruptly and it doesn't continue. So I need to make my wall go just a little bit further. There we go. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of an undertone. Oops. Keep forgetting to continue things. There's also the bit at the top there. That makes a little bit more sense. This bit at the top, so we'll give it this good olive brown. And then we'll come back in with a little bit of the green. Not a lot. Okay, and then with the olive a bit. And then there. Right now I need a dark green to do some of this. Again, I'm going to go back over this with the black, but I want a slightly different feel for this. I definitely don't want the red, yikes. Maybe a little bit of brown in there. And then black. Just to mute it down a little. And then maybe a touch more. Where's that blue-green? Lost my, oh, it's hiding. My cool gray. I think I need a little bit more of that here. Get a little bit more pronounced. There. There. And then I've lost the blue entirely. Actually, I had grabbed the blue. I think I need to work in just a teeny bit of a hint of the green. And then mute it with the olive. There. Okay. Oh, and then up here I need to do. And that again, I think I'm going to use the bronze as the base for the leaves, and this brown, this umber for the trunks. And then come back with a little bit of the black just for some definition. Again, I'm not trying to be literal, just trying to give sort of a hint. All right, so the only thing I'm really unhappy with is the background here, and that I think I'm going to use a little bit of watercolor just to add in. But I think I'm going to wait to glue. I'll do that watercolor, then I'll glue. All right, so I've got my watercolors here, and I'm gonna do just ever so much, just a teeny hint of a gray, and I have some on my palette here, and I think I'm just gonna use that because I don't want a lot, so I've got a little bit of gray here. I think it will work, and I'm just gonna wash that in. Again, just super, super lightly, just to fill in some color where my colored pencils just were not cooperating. So just ever so much. This gray is a little bit greenish, which feels like it makes sense with the sky that I have here. And yeah, softening that up just ever so much. And again, I'm letting this be loose because I want it to feel like an illustration, and I'm trying to match the style of what was already there, right? And I think that works fairly well. Okay, and then maybe down here as well, just a little bit to kind of fill in. Get rid of some of the white. I think that works just fine. almost no watercolor, really just more a hint of color. Now let me put this away. And then while that is drying just a little bit before I glue it down, hopefully you can see how that helped with the wash. I want to do a teeny bit more with this page. So earlier today, I had lunch with a good friend, and she gave me as a Christmas gift from her stash. She had these two diaries from 1991 and 1992, and they have some really fun images in them. Actually, whoa, that's a little way too zoomed in. Sorry about that. They have some really amazing, cute little images in them, not only color, but also just drawings. And I think these are going to make super great altered books. But I wanted to use a piece of this in my journal for today. And so I saw this image and I really liked it. And I thought it would be pretty to add to the page. So I'm just going to tear this out to include on the page somewhere. And let me get these back out of the way. And so I thought I would include this here, and I don't know, maybe let it go onto the opposite page, and then I can incorporate that somehow in tomorrow's prompt. So maybe over like this. So just kind of add it here. It is a junk journal after all, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then maybe with my colored pencils add a little bit of the same color to sort of make them fit. So that's the next step. I am gonna grab my little magazine here, so I have a glue mat, and then now this is going to go over the crease in the page, so I really want to make sure that I've got a good amount of glue on here, and then I'll glue it down the top, making sure I get the crease real well. There we go. And it's nice that the paper here is a similar tone to this paper, so it'll also help it sort of blend in. And then using the same colors that I used before, I'm gonna just color in a little bit. And again, so you can see what I'm doing, I'll go ahead and zoom in a tiny bit here. So I thought this flower, it might be pretty to add some of this red. And again, I'm using a light hand and I'm going in circles because I don't really want lines. I just want the color, and I want it to feel like part of the illustration and not like I came back in over it and added. And then I'll do maybe press a little bit harder on the inner edges. And then maybe give it that bronze color in the center. And then there's also little flowers here on the ends. So I'm going to add a little hint of red to those too. And then I think I'm going to use the bronze for the majority of the leaves here. Oh, there's another two flowers I didn't notice. Some of the red there. And then I'm not even going to worry about all of the leaves. I'm just going to do the ones that have a little bit of a space in them. And then also this sort of centerpiece, which I think is something that's supposed to be wrapping around. So I added a little bit of the bronze, and then I'm going to go back in with, I've lost the black. The black, if I can find it. It was on the floor. Go back in with the black here. And then maybe some hints of the other green on top. This is that lime green. This is a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to grab the olive green. And then this cool gray, it's a little bit of a blue gray. I'm just going to kind of go in around behind a little bit and give a little bit of shading behind it, a little evocative of the sky in my landscape. And this is nice because it not only creates an image to balance this one, and also because it extends to the other page, to extend the image to the other side, to create even more continuity, but it also allows me to do a little bit more junk in my junk journal, right? Because I'm reusing some book pages from elsewhere. So, okay, again, just a hint, super subtle, but got that there. Okay, and now let's go ahead and zoom back out. And I do need to glue down around the outside edges. I'm going to use my art glitter glue for that, and oops, a little bit of dried glue around the tip here. Clean that off. Okay, so I am going to go around the edge here so that the edges are definitely glued down, and I'm also going to put some in the center just to help it to adhere. And I'm going to work my way around. So gluing on the back where it's easy to reach, and then kind of going around and gluing down. Okay. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with that. So my landscape in my junk journal, and I have a little bit of space here in the middle to write, and I would use watercolor on all of this, but because I glued some things down over here, I'm afraid I'm going to loosen them. So I'm just going to leave this as is for now, and just kind of call it a day. But that is my little junk journal journey for today. I hope this gave you some ideas about some techniques that you can use in your own junk journals. And until tomorrow, I just hope that you absolutely make a great day. Bye.